A federal judge has struck down the ag-gag statute in the state of Iowa, making it the fourth state where an existing ag-gag law has been struck down as unconstitutional. Now, for people who may not know, ag-gag laws prohibit the filming or photography inside of animal exploitation facilities. So we're talking about farms, slaughterhouses, animal testing labs. You are not allowed, without the consent of the owner, to be documenting what's going on inside of them. Now, in the rest of the world, we look at whistleblowing activity as a positive thing. We say, hey, if there's something improper going on, if there's corporate misconduct, people should be blowing the whistle on that. People should be letting the public know the truth if there's something that's wrong that's happening. And those people are lauded because they are risking their reputation, they're risking their career, they're potentially risking their personal freedom in this instance. But due to the massive influence of animal agriculture in our political system, in our culture, in our society, we have seen the rise of these ag-gag laws and other laws specifically designed to silence whistleblowing activity. But now we're seeing some pushback on that, which is really encouraging to see. Like I say, Iowa being the fourth state to now have that an ag-gag statute be struck down. And this is particularly significant on a personal level. I'm actually from Iowa, so I've kind of seen firsthand what it's like where animal agriculture is just so thoroughly entrenched in a state. Iowa being a state where it's the leading pork and egg producing state in the country. So really a big victory, not only for free speech, but for animals in the state of Iowa, or on the other side, a big blow to see, the leading state had this struck down. And a little bit of context here. Now, with these ag-gag statutes, they are ostensibly passed as something in defense of property rights, saying, hey, if you're on somebody's private property, we need to make sure we're cracking down on that. They also mention biosecurity risks, so activists that they say are introducing pathogens that may lead to some sort of pandemic risk. Now this has never been proven to be true. There's not been an instance where we've seen some sort of outbreak due to activist activity. We've also it was actually interesting in their rebuttal to this, the Iowa Pork Producers Association, they didn't talk about property destruction. They didn't talk about violence. They didn't talk about any diseases introduced by activists. Well, the reason why is because that hasn't actually happened. But it is really interesting to see what they did say. So let's pull that up here on the screen. The Iowa Pork Producers Statement released this statement. Iowa pig farmers will continue to properly care for their animals and provide safe and secure working environments for their employees, and they will fight those who try to destroy or attack their livelihoods one case at a time. So again, really interesting, not only what they said, but what they didn't say. So the defense that they're going to is destroying or attacking livelihoods, as if that in and of itself is a defense for anything. Obviously, there are lots of people today in the U.S. and throughout the world, and certainly historically, people have made their livelihoods on all sorts of things that, either then or through the lens of history, we look at it and say, like, no, that doesn't need to exist, or that shouldn't be happening. I mean, there are people who make a living doing all sorts of illegal and immoral things, or things that are just outdated via technology. We no longer have blacksmiths. We no longer have, horse carriages all throughout the streets. The fossil fuel industry is on its way out. It's not because people who are working in these industries are bad people. It's because we're moving on. There's a better alternative, and we should embrace that. And it's a really selective and political framing when they try to make it seem like, we're attacking the livelihood of these ordinary people, because that's really not the reality. If you haven't seen the film Food Incorporated, I highly encourage folks to check that out, because that really paints a more accurate picture. The winners in this, in the arrangement where animal agriculture has in this country, are the executives. It's the CEOs, the people making all this money. The people who are working are largely undocumented, largely people, especially in slaughterhouses, people who don't have a lot of alternatives. They are being victimized. Even the farmers themselves are beholden to the contracts that these massive corporations like Smithfield and Tyson are really forcing upon them and dictating exactly how they're going to do their business, and they don't have a lot of say-so in it. And it's important to really emphasize what activists are actually trying to accomplish. And it's not to blame and shame these individuals who are making their living. It's to transform the system away from something where we're doing all this harm and these massive corporations are profiting off of this horrifically unethical, not to mention unnecessary industry. But let's transform that, and let's switch those farmers from being farmers of animals to farmers of plants. And these alternatives are very much readily available. We have the infrastructure, we have the resources, we have the farm bill whereby hundreds of billions of dollars are allocated to agriculture. So we can move that, we can reallocate that from animal agriculture to plant-based alternatives. It's absolutely there. The only thing that's really missing is the political will. And so that's why it's so important for us to speak up and to get that message out there. And relatedly, it's super inspiring to see the work of groups like Direct Action Everywhere, where they're really taking it to the front lines and right into these states where there's so much repression and where these ag laws exist. So originally, when these laws first started popping up over the past couple decades, there actually was this chilling effect, which is exactly what industry wanted. Activists were afraid to speak up, to take action, because they were afraid of the consequences. And so you see investigations not really happening in these ag states. And again, that's exactly what they wanted to have happen. But in recent years, activists have wised up, in my view, and they're taking the fight directly to those states. So they're, quite the opposite of being scared. They're saying, no, we're going to go directly there. And so Direct Action Everywhere, for example, investigated Circle 4 Farms. It's the largest pig farm in the country in Milford, Utah. And at the time, Utah was an ag state. It's actually been struck down since then. But they go right into that state, and we're effectively daring them, like, come and get us. Because we know that, number one, we're going to expose what's happening inside of there, and they can either let us keep on doing it, and then their laws don't really mean anything and nobody's scared, and that works pretty well. Or if they do come after us, it just gives us another opportunity to amplify the message even further. And so we see these exposés that come out. The Intercept has done some incredible work with exposing what's going on. DXC's also been covered in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and many other prominent outlets, not only for the investigation itself, but then the resulting repression attempts, where you have FBI agents actually raided farm animal sanctuaries, trying to, recover the stolen property, which were actually these 2 dying piglets. That's digressing a little bit. That wasn't an ag issue, but it just kind of is this broader concept where, if we're doing our due diligence and we're doing these investigations and we're getting the message out there, the industry has nothing to do. They either let us keep going and we're going to keep doing what we're doing, or they try to come after us, and it amplifies the message even further. And more recently, Direct Action Everywhere, including myself, conducted investigations in North Carolina, which is also an ag state. It's a civil statute, and specifically went there because of the ag law and exposed what's going on. There was an article covered in Vox that really beautifully laid out Smithfield lying to consumers, committing to removing gestation crates, and we openly, proudly, and publicly showed our face and said, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're about, and if you want to come after us, we're waiting for you. So a big victory here today with this ag statute being struck down, not only for free speech, but for animals and for whistleblowing protection.